Guys, it's me, it's Queen Us at Haru, and thank you for joining me for another wonderful edition of Ask an Aquarius. If you haven't already, please hit the red subscribe button and smack the bell. Okay, so guys, listen. I had a gentleman ask me a question. He wants to know, why is it that so many Aquarius are lesbian, gay, or bisexual? Okay? So it's a very fair question, because if you look at us statistically speaking, number one, the women are more inclined to admit this than the men. I've been in forums where Aquarius have been talking about this topic, and the men get very angry. And I'm always sitting there like, why you mad, son? like if that's not your lifestyle, why you mad? But we'll get back to that. The bottom line is that if you take 10 Aquarius and you kind of sort them by sexuality, 5 out of 10 are likely to be lesbian, gay, or bisexual. Now, this is pretty high. So the question becomes, why is it so high with Aquarius? Well, it's high with Aquarius because, number one, Aquarius are always said to be very good in what? Non-traditional relationships. We've talked about this many times. We're great at non-traditional relationships. So a traditional relationship is usually characterized as a monogamous heterosexual relationship. So Aquarius are good in those sometimes, but we really excel in non-traditional relationships. So those are relationships that are not heterosexual and not monogamous. So a lot of us do really well in these. So that's the first reason why you're going to see a lot of us in these types of relationships, because it tells you right there in the literature that a lot of us excel in them. Now, mind you, a lot of us are heterosexual and we excel in some of those relationships as well. But the bottom line is that per sign, you see a lot of this go on with Aquarius, and that is why, because we do really well in those types of relationships. I'll give you myself as an example. I never did well in relationships with men. I just didn't do well. I didn't like how I showed up in the relationship. I didn't show up the same as I do in relationships with women. And likewise, my relationships with men were always too adversarial, you see? Because again, I'm an Aquarius woman, so what am I ruled by? 2 masculine planets. So when a woman is ruled by 2 masculine planets, it doesn't always take away from her look, her feminine look, like I, look feminine enough, but some of the times, a lot of times, she's going to, underneath the surface, have some masculine characteristics and traits going on. Aggression, assertion, things that I don't really see as masculine, but are traditionally labeled as masculine. Every time I got into a relationship with a gentleman, it always ended up exactly the same way. I think some of that probably had to do with the fact that Aquarius in general are rebellious. So as a woman, I'm expected to be what, y'all? Submissive. Ain't shit happening. Ain't shit happening. So here it is, me, the Aquarius woman, the rebel, and you got me with a man, and you're telling me he's my authority figure? You're telling me I have to listen to him? You're telling me he gets the final say in our home? So for me, it's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. I ain't got that in me. It ain't there. So what would happen, people? Well, they would say what was going to happen. I would say, okay, and then go do whatever I want. Next thing I know, he's mad. We fighting. The cops is there, and it's a problem. So those relationships for me just didn't work out. So I noticed, because I had relationships with men and women simultaneously, I noticed that my relationships with women were easier, were more harmonious, were happier. And even when we didn't make it, it was less drama. The dismount was less problematic, okay? Breaking up with a guy or having these issues with a gentleman was more difficult. Breaking up with a woman, even when it was dramatic, was not as bad. It was like, okay, it is what it is, you know? And we would part with each other, me and the female would part with each other, and it wasn't this whole big dramatic blow up. It was just like, okay, time to go. Okay, so that's why you see a lot of that with the Aquarius woman. The Aquarius woman, in the cases when we are lesbian or bisexual, we just do better. Some of us just do better with that energy. We have an easier time with that energy, you know, and I found it to be more enjoyable. I found it to be easier to deal with and much more enjoyable. So it is what it is. Now, when it comes to Aquarius men, the ones who are actually in the life, typically they pretend to be heterosexual. That's what they do. They pretend to be heterosexual. The ones that have really high self-esteem, they'll come out. And, you know, they'll live their truth if they want to, you know, because coming out is a very private kind of thing. Some people choose to come out, some people don't. But a lot of the Aquarius men that are comfortable with themselves will be comfortable with their sexuality. And the ones who aren't will hide it. And the other ones are truly heterosexual. So that's how it goes pretty much for us. And like I said, a long time ago, I told you guys about the legend of Ganymede. And that was how, remember I told you how Aquarius became Aquarius? That is the mythology of Aquarius. Well, if you look at the legend of Ganymede, it's about two men. It's about two men who are, you know, in lust, basically. You know, it's about Zeus, a man, and Ganymede, a young guy. I think he's a boy, if you ask me. But the bottom line is that they're in a non-traditional homosexual relationship. So the actual mythology behind Aquarius is a gay story. You know, the actual story starts off with us being in a non-traditional homosexual relationship. So my point to you is that it's not that all our Aquarius are going to be gay. Actually, the exact opposite. You're going to have a mix. We're going to have a mix of different types of relationships depending on what the Aquarius is into. But that's just how it is. That's who we are, you know? And you can see it in our mythology. You can see it in our characteristics. You can see it in the masculine energy with the feminine. You know, you can see it. It's just there. So my thing is that if you were in a relationship with an Aquarius and you are open with each other about your sexuality, that may be something that they may be open to discussing with you. They may be open in that kind of way. But remember, sexuality is fluid and sexuality is difficult. Okay, some of the times people take a while to understand their own sexuality, and sometimes people do not admit their sexuality. Remember, I talked about how difficult it is for males. Aquarius men who are pretending to be heterosexual are not pretending to be heterosexual because they want to. They're doing that because they feel like they have to. Remember, when it comes to a man, his manhood is assigned. His manhood is, it comes together with his sexuality. You see, a man who is having sex with women is seen to be a man in our society. But a man who's having sex with other men is not seen to be a man. Now, mind you, this doesn't make sense because either way, he's still a man. Either way, he's still a whole dude. But our society has decided, you know, that that's not the case. So these men that do choose to hide because they don't want their manhood to be questioned or challenged. So that's why that happens. It happens not just with Aquarius men. Any men that are on the DL, that's usually why they're on the DL. They're not on the DL because they just want to be deceptive creeps. You know, even though that sometimes is what happens, but they're on the DL because they can't be a man and have these relationships in their mind based on what the norms are being placed by society. So instead of just owning it and dealing with it, they lie about it. They pretend so that they can keep their manhood, they can keep face with their buddies, they can keep face in their neighborhoods and in their communities, and nobody knows what they're doing except for the men they're doing it with. To me, it's a disservice to everybody, because if they were allowed to just be who they are without penalty, then they could be honest. You see? Then they could be honest about it. Now, personally, I think they should be honest anyway, but it's easy for me as a woman to say that, you know? But I do think they should be honest anyway. I think they should just keep it real and deal with the consequences. But that's not generally what happens. Generally what happens is they hide it until they can't hide it anymore. So if you're wondering why so many Aquarius are gay or bisexual or lesbian, that's why. And I think it's amazing that it is so many of us, but also I really don't think it's a big deal. Because honestly, somebody's sexuality really isn't important unless you're having sex with them. If you're not having sex with somebody, their sexuality really isn't important to you. You know, you're not going to be there. You're not invited to the party, you know, so it's none of your business. So why would you care? Usually, I know people's sexuality because I can usually either, sometimes I can tell, and sometimes they share it with me. It just depends, you know. But I never really care. It doesn't bother me either way. I don't care what somebody's sexuality is, because I'm not going to be there when they're having sex. So it's not, what difference does it make? I'm not going to be there, so unless I'm being invited. Now, once you invite me, that's when I got some questions. That's when I want to know what's what. But if I'm not invited, then it's none of my business. All right, guys, it's time for me to get going. So you let me know what you think about sexuality. Basically, what I want to know is what is your sexuality? Who and what are you? And if you're not willing to share it, what keeps you from sharing your sexuality? That's what I want to know. I want to know that tea today. Okay? It's none of my business and I ain't going to be there. But just for the purpose of conversation, let's go there. Also, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you know somebody who has wondered why so many Aquarius gay and lesbian and bisexual, pass on this video to them and tell them that I said all the way from the beginning, all the way from the Greeks, all the way from Ganymede, we always were. We always had that going on. Anyway, guys, I have to get going. So if you want to send me a love donation, drop it in my PayPal and I'll be eternally grateful. If you want to send me a gift from Amazon, I got a really cool wish list. Check out my wish list. Even if you don't want to send me a gift, check it out because you might see some things that you like for yourself. Also, if you want to get a tarot reading, a chart done, or me to consult on some spiritual work that you're doing, some magic that you're doing per se, let me know. I'll be glad to help you out. Email me. I'll leave my email for anybody who needs an appointment. Likewise, you can hit me up on Facebook or Instagram. I spend a lot of time on Facebook. All right, guys. See you later.